line, menacing and fascinating. If it's not menacing, you don't have to pay attention to it. But if I put a gun in his head, you've got to pay attention to it. Whether it be physical, moral, or mental. Now, when I'm talking about menacing, you're not to just kill him, as long as you can threaten something that's of value to him. That's of value to him. It all has to be value. But his position of pecking order, respect from his peers, or his life, whatever it may be. As long as it's value to him, you've got to play the game. That's the situation. And both menacing and fascinating. So basically, if you look at this double dash system, after the double dash, what am I really saying here? In some sense, what you're really trying to do is generate a mismatch between that which he perceives and that which he must react or adapt to. So therefore, if I can work my way through the loops faster than he can or get inside his loop, then we generate those mismatches. I'm going to give you a field. Let me illustrate. Give you a field. Very important one. Let's assume we in this room are going to go up against some adversaries, or some other group of adversaries, which you people eventually will be doing here. Later. Okay? Now let's assume, for the sake of the academic argument, that we can operate that faster tempo or fate. In other words, we can get inside his loop. In fact, we call them OODA, O-O-D-A, OODA. You'll hear that term, O-O-D-A, OODA. So let's assume we can get inside his OODA. What does that mean? If he goes to make a move, we adjust inside that move, so his move now is no longer relevant. If he tries to re-move, we adjust again, it's no longer relevant. Well, after a couple of those, he's going to notice he's losing out. In other words, he's going further and further away from his goal. We're also going to notice we're going further and further closer to our goal. Well, if it's a competitive situation, he values what's going on. What's that going to do to him? Doubt and uncertainty is going to begin to build up in his mind. And if we keep that pace on and don't take the pressure off, we transform that doubt and uncertainty into confusion and distortion. You've probably seen where people, when they're overpressed, are coming out with, they do strange and bizarre things. It makes it even worse unless somebody takes the squeeze off. Now, if you have one group going against another group, and that other group's losing out, whatever it may be, then they start transmitting those doubts, fears, and uncertainties one to the other. So not only confusion, disorder, panic, and chaos come out. You can just see it well up. They come panic, they're totally unglued. Can't function as an organic whole. Not only that, they start pointing fingers at one another because nobody wants to be a failure. That even helps even more. You've never seen that before, have you? Of course you have. You've heard the statement, victory has 1,000 fathers, 15 is north. That's what we're talking about. Nobody wants to take the blame. So if you have groups going against one of those doubts and fears begin to well up, you can transform them into panic chaos, and I'll show it. So it's a very important idea. Trying to get inside his system. The idea being when you get inside is to generate mismatches between that which he must, what he perceives, and that which he must. Yeah. Okay? So, do we have an example? Turns out I'll show you 3 here. And the first one that came to my mind that threw me into historical investigation was the Blitzkrieg versus Imagine Line, Mentality, 1904. The very first book I picked up. Everybody's talking about the very fast tempo, very fast pace the Germans were going. The French couldn't keep up, pretty soon confusion, disorder, panic, chaos came going. I said, that's very impressive. And while I know that happened, because there were so many accounts that depicted that, what I didn't know, what were the internal dynamics associated with the Blitzkrieg that permitted them to do that? One thing to know the result, you really want to understand the dynamics. Because if you understand the dynamics, maybe you can do it to somebody else, or make it very difficult for somebody else to do it to you. Once again, not just in a physical sense, but also in a moral mental sense. So it'd be important to understand that if you can. Now, I'm not going to bring it out here because that's why I went to my historical investigation. Okay, but when we go into that, we'll show you what happened in terms of those Blitzkrieg dynamics and why they're able to get their leverage over their adversary if they can't cope with it. Now here's one I am very familiar with, the 86 versus the MiG-15, as they were using in Korea. Now typically today, many people, or until very recently, people thought the MiG-15 was a more maneuverable airplane than the 86. That was a general contention, it was a general projection. Well, I will dispel that. I'll show you why, make it very compelling and convincing. For one thing, we have a new frame of reference to which we can compare those airplanes. We have the OODA, observe, orient, decide, and act. We'll use that frame of reference, we'll put them juxtaposed one against the other and see what happens. So let's take the first O, observation. 86 versus the MiG-15. The MiG-15 was slightly smaller than the 86. So from the size viewpoint, would have an observation advantage over the 86. Might be insignificant, but it's still there. On the other hand, the 86 had what we call a super bubble canopy, and the MiG did not. So in terms of the ability to see out, the 86 was much better, and pilots that flew both airplanes commented upon the fact it was easier for an 86 pilot to see a MiG-15 than the other way around. In other words, the ability to see out more than washed away the small size of this airplane. So from an observation viewpoint, the 86 had the advantage over the MiG-15. Okay, orientation and decision, I'll keep them together. That not only depends upon observation, but it also depends upon your previous experience and training. And if that's pretty bad, then your orientation is going to be screwed up too. You're going to make inappropriate decisions, so even your actions can be clumsy. Well, we generally accorded our pilots, at least as a corporate group, were better trained and more experienced than common. Now let's go to the action where this thing really comes out and tends to show the MiG might be better than the 86. If you were to compare the MiG versus the 86, you would find out the MiG-15 could outclimb and out-accelerate the 86 throughout the entire flight envelope, and in some parts by a very significant amount. Outclimb and out-accelerate the F-86. In terms of the ability to sustain a turn, the MiG was also superior to the 86 throughout the entire flight envelope. In terms of the ability to go what we call instantaneous, or up to pitch up or stall in an airplane, there were some areas 86 was better than MiG and vice versa. And then if you were to sort of integrate, pull all that together, you'd say, well, on that basis there, ergo, the MiG-15 is superior to the 86. And on that basis, it's not a bad conclusion. Unfortunately, some things were left out. It turns out the 86 had what we call a super hydraulic flight control system at that time. High-powered hydraulic flight control. Just like you have power steering in the car. 2,800 pounds per square inch. So you could just move the stick from one way to the other and make the airplane pop very quickly from one direction to the other and pull back. The MiG did not. The point was, when an 86 got bounced by a MiG, it would lag a little bit, it could flip-flop its turn quick the other direction. The MiG took a long while. The 86 could flip-flop its direction again, so it would do a very quick scissor maneuver and just stuff the MiG out front, even though the MiG, for one particular maneuver, could stay behind the 86, and 86 could transition or shift from one maneuver more rapidly than the MiG. And so by going these very quick reversals, the MiG couldn't do it. It just stuck them forward. Because remember, you have to overcome those air loads, and the faster you go, the more the air load, the more muscle power you have to use. Well, you have to put a substitute there. That's called hydraulic power. It's like power steering in a car. Make it happen. So are we going to say then the ability to roll or roll-pitch combination isn't a part of maneuverability? Well, that's absurd. It certainly is. Well, if that's a part of maneuverability, then how can you say the MiG could outmaneuver the 86? You can't. The 86 was done. When you look at it in a broader sense. Because it could shift its ability to slip into one maneuver or another more readily than MiG. And the pilots, they noticed certain things would happen. When they began to get leverage over another pilot, his maneuvers tend to get disjointed, bizarre. In fact, they commented upon it. It seemed like their minds were coming unglued. You talk about getting inside minds. Getting inside their minds in terms of fear, doubt, and so the guy's going to die. People normally don't take that comment. And we're all vulnerable. In fact, you can go back to World War II. There's an account by Don Gentile. He was a P-51 pilot. You might have heard about it in World War II, P-51H over in Europe. He commented upon a couple instances in his life when he was fighting a couple Germans one day, I forget, either ME-109 or Fox World War 90. But he commented upon the fact that his fights started out, they were pretty equal, but as he began to get leverage, the other guy's maneuvers became disjointed. One guy literally flew into the ground, literally just flew right into the ground. The other guy's maneuvers came shot down. And he even made a point, he said, you almost could see their minds just coming unglued. Because you're referring back one day, he wasn't doing so well, and all that starts welling up in him, and he had a hard time staying on top of the situation. We're all vulnerable. Think about your own life. Your time. Think back at times when you have certain things you want to do, you have time pressure, and it's sort of not sure you're going to make it, and then somebody loads something else on you before you start getting very nervous. First thing you're trying to do is relieve that pressure so you can get this done and that done. But if you won't relieve it, it bothers you. Particularly if it's about value. Remember, once it's a value, it's no value. But it's one of value, then you got a problem. That's the medicine. So that happens. We've seen it. Okay, the Israeli raid. We're talking about the intended raid in 1976, another example. In and out in 90 minutes, right? The Idi Amin's troops never even knew what hit them. They're just all totally out of it. And you can think of any other, I'm just laying out for you right now. In any case, if we stitch all that together, we come up with a new conception. It's been there all the time. We just somehow didn't see of conflict. You want to exploit your operations of weapons such that you deliberately generate a rapidly changing environment in terms of quick, clear observations, orientations, decisions, tempo, etc. In other words, you want to compress the time over which you can realize those things. Likewise, what you want to do is you want to inhibit your adversary's capacity to adapt to such an environment. In other words, cloud or distort his observations, screw up his decisions, etc. Warfare, camouflage, spoofing, deception, other kinds of things, ambiguity. So you want to compress your time, stretch out his time. And that's the idea. Simultaneously do both. Compress own time and stretch out adversary time to generate a favorable mismatch in time and ability to adapt, shape and adapt and change. Remember, you're not only adapting, but you're shaping. Don't just be a reactor. Be a shaper, too. So you're trying to compress your time. You're trying to generate that mismatch in time and ability to shape and adapt and change. Now, if you can realize that idea, then the goal happens almost as a natural consequence. If you realize that, you're going to get this goal almost as a natural consequence. Call it. You'll start to collapse his system of confusion disorder, cause him to over and underreact and do crazy kinds of things. Because you not only appear menacing, if there's something of value there, but also ambiguous, chaotic, misleading, etc. Competition, adversarial relations. This is more than just war. War, you know, it's not about body count. That's right here. It's more than body count. That's why we got screwed up in Vietnam. Where it's only about body count. So this is a much more general definition. You can apply to war, apply to very soft kinds of things, or intermediate things. Any kind of competitive behavior, whatever it might be. And you see it works on somebody's what? Mind. Right. I'll make some statements later on. Very important. Okay? This next chart I'll skip, just an example you want to do. And those are sort of the ideas or notions I had in my mind before I dove into my historical investigation. And remember, the reason why I wanted to get into that was because of the Blitzkrieg. I sort of see what's happening here in terms of the results. What were those internal dynamics? Well, as I got into that, I found out in order to understand Blitzkrieg, I had to read military history. I read military history. The reason why I had to do that is because Guderian and the others that helped shape the Blitzkrieg would refer to an earlier year of military history to have a one-liner. Well, I don't know what it meant. I mean, I knew what the word said, but I didn't know the context. So I had to go back and read it. Then when I learned the context, it was, okay, I got that, and I had to learn others. Pretty soon, as I'm going through it, I just can't talk about Blitzkrieg. I look at guerrilla warfare, regular warfare, dirty tricks, all the kinds of stuff. War in general, or competition in general. And then it became very evident to me, when you look at that. The statement I'm going to make now, I almost made it a few minutes ago. The statement I'm going to make now, you're going to see I'm going to say it more than once as I go through this presentation. But we still, in some ways, don't understand it. Remember, terrain doesn't wage wars. Machines don't wage wars. People do when they use their mind. So if I go after the terrain or the machine, I'm going to have to fight over and over. But if I go after somebody's mind, then I got the people, then I got the machines, and I got the terrain. And how important is that in politics? Doesn't count. That's the idea. That in all forms of conflict, different subtleties, different nuances. It's very important. I'm going to say it one more time before we get into it. Terrain doesn't wage wars, machines don't wage wars, people do in the use of their mind. And I can show you our careerism, in a sense, is related to terrain later on. Different kind of terrain. Think about it. It causes problems. We'll get into that later. So if that's the case, then what are we really referring to here? In some way or another, we're talking about human behavior or human nature. After all, humans want to go forward. deal in conflict, competition. So maybe that should be our starting point. So let's go back to and we're going to get right down to the very simple fundamentals to start this way. First of all, I think we want to survive, otherwise dive out the window. As a group, we want to survive. Not only that you want to survive, you tend to want to survive in your own terms. In other words, you don't want to have to survive under onerous circumstances. You want to have some control over your survival, some freedom of action. Well, if you begin to think about that, in some sense, you want to improve your capacity for independent action. Whether you're talking about individuals, groups, nation states, or what have you, political parties. But it turns out we live in a world of limited resources, not only in terms of physical, skills, talents, the whole 9 yards. So if we improve our capacity for independent action, and there's limited resources, we're going to tend to deprive somebody of their capacity for independent action. Or if we improve our ability to survive on our own terms, we tend to deny him. Or if we really get sharp, we can make it impossible for him to survive at all. You people don't have to. You don't have to worry about survival in your job. Remember, we're not only talking physical, we're talking about anything with that. So the implication is quite clear. Life is conflict, survival, and conflict. Period. You can be soft, you can be intermediate, you can be sharp. That's the way it is. Remember, World War I was a war that ends all wars. That didn't work out too good. World War II, make the world and preserve the world for democracy. That hasn't gone. And I can go on and on. And you people don't have to compete for your particular job anywhere. It's given free lunch. Always. So you not only have conflict, you have survival and conquest in many different modes or nuances. That's life. So, that being the case, it leads me to this comment. If that's the case, we're not only talking about conduct of war, but we can also bring other ideas in, like the theory of natural selection. Creationists might not like that too well, but one of the interesting things about the theory of natural selection, some of it's under challenge today too, not all of it, some of it's holding up, is because whether you're talking about war or these ideas of evolution, they impinge very much upon this idea of conflict, struggle, coping, adapting, etc. And many different views are brought in. We want to look at those views. Remember I said we don't want the elegant solution or the definitive solution. We want to look at why. If our adversary's got an elegant solution, we know his plus some other ones, then we have. I'll bring that on in different ways to get through it. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you want to accept your adversary's viewpoint. You better understand it. We like the mirror image. You know, we've got it right to hell with them. We're just going to take them out before we get in trouble with it. You have to understand it. I'll make that evidence we get through. Okay, so that's why I want to look through these guys. And what happens when we do that? I'm going to give you an overall, what I call an overall initial impression here. We'll go right back to 400 BC. Initial impression I got out of it after a few years looking. Pretty soon things start picking off in my head because I'm looking at a lot of data, looking at it in many different forms. And this is the impression I was left with. I'll let you read it and I'll comment on it. You all read that all right? If I get out of your way. Let me talk. You know what I'm referring to in this first couple dash statement? Variety and rapidity. To give you a feel for what I'm referring to, why variety and rapidity is important. Let's turn the argument around and say we don't have variety, we can't operate rapidly. What does that mean? That means you lose your ability to adapt, you also become predictable. In conflict, you want to have adaptability and unpredictability. You have no choice. If you become predictable and non-adaptable, you lose. Your adversary is the other way around. That's why it's important. That's why those so-called elegant or definitive solutions fall in trouble. Not only that, you have to learn how to work with other people. So you can work as a concerted whole. You have to be able to harmonize your activity or cooperate. If you don't, you can't work together. Everybody has ultimate freedom of action. Then you got a just everything going off in all directions. You can't work. You can't function. So there has to be some kind of things you invoke in order to permit people to focus and bring about that. We have harmonized directive. We'll get into that deeper. And then finally, even if you can operate rapidly with the rise and harmonize everything, you just can't sit there and let the world take care of it. It won't. You have to take initiative. In other words, do you want to be a shaper or do you want to be a reactor? You have to take initiative. This is where the military's got it screwed up. I'll bring out later on. They don't understand this. They get it confused with offensive and defensive. I can take initiative whether I'm in the offense or defense or wherever I am. Those are incorrect terms. Initiative, whether you're moving forward, backwards, sideways, or any direction. As long as you are using the initiative, then you can get that leverage. We'll make that evident as we go through. So what I'm really saying, these are very important qualities. And later on what we'll do, we'll not only bring those out, but we'll show you how they tie together. We mesh them right together with the so-called OODA, how they play together. That would be evident. We work our way through the bridge today. Okay, with that in mind now, let's step back to the earliest known treatise on war. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. How many people read it? Anybody here? The Art of War. You get some arguments when it was written. Some say 500 BC, some say 300. I had it together, divided by 2, and bureaucratically averaged it, came out around 400. I don't know who's right. That's what we call bureaucratic averaging. 2 polls say, fine, add them together, divide by 2, we got it right where we want it. Each guy's got a piece of the action. Okay, in any case, if we look at Sun Tzu's Art of War, here's a theme that begins to unfold. Note that first bullet, harmony. Those people that read it will recall in this very first chapter, what's he talking about? How the citizens have to be in accord with the rulers of the estate. You have to be able to be in accord or harmonize with the rulers of the state. You have to harmonize with one another and also the rulers of the state. Without that, the state can't even rule. It's the most important thing. Same thing in political parties. What you want to do is get disharmony in the opposite party so you can realize your leverage. So the very first thing you've got to get is get harmony in your operation. Get people to work together so you can get that leverage. But Sun Tzu understood that back in BC. That's very Another thing that literally drips throughout the treatise, war to act, the idea of deception. And more than once he makes the statement, all war is based upon deception, but other kinds of conflict aren't. All war is based upon deception. He says it more than once. Another notion he brings up, the idea of being quick, speedy, or swift, what I call swiftness of action. He said the essence of war is rapidity, swiftness, deception. Also states that more than one. Then he brings in a notion in a very indirect way, which I call fluidity of action, which he brings out in a very metaphorical way. In fact, that's one thing when you first read Sun Tzu, you're not sure what you read. There's metaphors, aphorisms, and analogies. So you say, boy, that was great, what the hell did I read? Some of you pull out, some of you don't get right away, because your Western mind, you're not tuned to it. And one of those is related to what I call fluidity of action. For those people who read it will remember, he made the statement, armies should behave like water going downhill. Go for the weakness, the voids, the fissures, the gaps. Now think about that for a moment. If the armies can behave like water, and if water does that, what he's really saying, in some sense, you want to impose your strength against your adversary's weakness. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect is flow or move along paths of least resistance. A third aspect, since you're working in the environment, you want to adapt to that environment. That's what water does. So there's 3 ideas to fluidity of action. Strength against weakness, paths of least resistance, and adaptability. But you people in the political party don't want this. Again, you see all this stuff, it all is very true. Okay, so then you use all these kinds of things playing together in order to play what we call the military, the dispersion concentration game. Sometimes you want to be dispersed, it'll become evident later on what it is. Sometimes you want to be concentrated. But you're shifting from dispersion to concentration back and forth. For what reason? That gives you a way of imposing your strength into your adversary's weakness. You always operate in one form, you tend to become predictable. If you're changing that form, then you can impose your strength into his weakness. It's a way of doing it. And why do you do that when you change these things around? You're applying all these things together to effect or to generate what we call surprise and shock. Note, to effect, surprise and shock. What do I mean here? I don't surprise you. You don't surprise me. We treat it as an input. I do certain things. And if I'm clever about it, you are surprised. It's a reaction. It's an output. Shock is an output. Or you do things very cleverly as an output, then I become surprised or shocked. Yet you look at some of our military manuals, they treat shock and surprise like it's an input. It's not an input, it's an output. I don't surprise you. You really are surprised by my actions. It's a reaction to you because you can't cope, can't keep up, don't discern what's going on, whatever it might be. You really want to sort that out. You might say, well, this is true. I'll show you later on it isn't. Because once you get that sorted out, then it gives you another way for applying leverage to somebody. Because the question becomes, what are these different things you do, or how do you play things together in order to get this reaction we call surprise and shock out of our heads? Becomes very important. We still have a moment, we have shock action, not shock action. You do certain things, you place somebody into a state of shock. And if they're in a state of shock, they can't cope, they can't adapt, they become paralyzed, they don't know what to do. That's essentially it. So this is sort of his theme. Later on we'll define this term in my head too. Very carefully. Right now we're just gathering the evidence. And here's his strategy related to this theme. Note the first bullet. Get inside his organization, know strengths, weaknesses, maneuvers, intentions, etc. How does he do that? Simple. Spies, reconnaissance, bribes, every dirty trick we know today he knew back then. Matter of fact, you read his chapter on spying, he's talking about double agents. Well, that's good. That's all that. All those kinds of things. In other words, you're trying to do what? Understand, know your adversary. Remember his famous statement? Know your enemy, know yourself, win 100 battles. Well, one of the ways to help knowing your enemy is through this intelligence, reconnaissance, and all these kinds of things, to get inside his mind. You open your image. And remember, in a much deeper sense,